Chair Desroches.
Here.
Chair Gower.
Here.
You have quorum, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Eric. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay, I'm seeing none. There are no items that we're holding today because there are presentations on each one. We don't have any delegations registered today. Our first item is 3.1, the OC Transpo update, rail, bus, and Para Transpo. And welcome, Renee and your team. We'll pass things over to you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Bonjour à tous.
Hello, everyone. I'd like to acknowledge the presence of my team and the presence of Clint Catry, who will be giving our presentation later.
As usual. So this is the Joint Transit Commission and Light Rail Subcommittee meeting. I'm pleased to be here to share transit project updates as we look back at this year and plan for the new year. Next slide, please. In partnership with MADD, Canada and Safer Roads Ottawa, OC Transpo is again offering free service on Sunday, December 31st from 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. This information will be shared with our customers broadly to encourage them to take transit to get them to and from home safely after their New Year's Eve celebrations. Communications on the upcoming fare change have also begun to inform customers of the new transit fares that were approved by Council at last week's budget meeting. The changes will go into effect on January 1st. There will be no increase to the Community Pass, the Equipass, and the Access Pass. Our winter service changes will be implemented on December 24th. We are also in the process of fulfilling a commitment that we made to our customers to provide additional shade, shelters, and weather protection at Herdman and Tunis Pasteur stations. 9 shelters will be installed at Herdman Station, and 14 shelters will be installed at Tunis Pasteur Station. Safety continues to be our top priority, and we are very excited about our most recent safety campaign that we spoke to you about last month. This campaign builds upon our Small Summer Safety campaign. We are seeing positive engagement across multiple channels, including on social media. I will share some examples of this campaign shortly. Next slide, please. Through our Safer Together campaign, we want to promote a safe and positive transit experience for customers and employees. We featured themes that address common unsafe behaviors, such as rushing on transit platforms. The campaign advocates against rush culture and encourages customers to be aware of their surroundings. Next slide, please. Mutual respect is another important focus of our Safer Together campaign. We want our customers to know that we need to work together to create the safest environment possible for everyone. This campaign has begun to generate meaningful conversations, and we look forward to more customer engagement on safety topics. Next slide, please. The 39th annual OC Transpo Loblaw Christmas Food Drive took place this past Saturday, December 9th. And I'm proud of our team who worked hard with our partners on this event. Together, we collected over 66,000 pounds of food and raised over $32,000, almost double the amount of monetary donations from last year. Next slide, please. I know that many of you visited your local stores on the weekend to support this yearly fundraiser. Thank you so much for your support and helping to promote this important community event. I had the opportunity to see Chair Gower, and I saw as well Councillor Johnson. And I also want to thank our partners at Loblaw Companies Limited, the Ottawa Food Bank, and our dedicated staff, volunteers, and donors for helping to make this year another success. Next slide, please. I think we're just a little bit, the slides doesn't match. Anyway, as we look ahead to 2024, we continue to work towards our collective goal of achieving 99.5% service delivery. We have an action plan in place and we remain committed to finding success together. We have implemented new fare technologies and we will continue to collaborate with our partners to improve customer experience. We will further develop our talent pool through ongoing recruitment. Through new programs like on-demand transit, we will continue to find ways to meet changing customer travel needs. I will now hand over the presentation to Matt to provide an update on the on-demand project. Next slide, please.
Merci, René. Je vais commencer notre mise à jour.
Well, I'll start our update today by talking about community engagement. We've had the opportunity to talk to residents over the past month.
Engaging with the community with regards to on-demand transit, and we've been keeping the OWL very busy, as you can see in the picture there on the screen. In November, we held a community information event in Blackburn Hamlet, where staff were available to demonstrate how to use the software application, answer questions about the service area, bus stops, and project background. More importantly, we had cake available, lots of cake, and the OC OWL was there, as well as one of our on-demand transit-equipped minibuses. We also attended a community pancake breakfast on December 2nd, along with customer service staff, the OWL, and a minibus. We've also undertaken a live service demonstration with Councillor Dudas and Chair Gower, which was very well done, and it was a pleasure to show the Chair and Councillor Dudas how the service will operate in Blackburn Hamlet. And as part of our commitment to engage with those in the accessible community, we've attended the most recent Para Transpo working group and accessibility advisory committees. I am very pleased to say that community feedback has been great. There's still a real buzz around the project, and the community is very much looking forward to the pilot study commencing. Next slide, please. So at the moment, we anticipate launching in early 2024. Our team continues to work with our software provider, Pantonium, to enhance the app and to improve the eventual customer experience. By way of background, over the past 3 months, we've carried out many rigorous on-street testing and simulation sessions. These sessions have involved staff from across transit services, as well as Pantonium, our software provider. So these tests simulate actual service, with staff requesting rides as customers at on-street bus stops, bus operators using the onboard tablet to respond to requests, and communicating with our Transit Operations Control Centre for any questions or issues that may arise during the day. After each session, a thorough debrief is carried out, and where improvements are required, action items are assigned to the relevant area within OC or to our software provider, Pantonium. At this point, additional testing and simulation sessions with a focus on the app and back-end software are required in order to ensure a successful pilot study. And that concludes my update for on-demand transit. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Je vais maintenant donner un bref aperçu de la
Now I'd like
façon
to give you an update of how we're preparing for operations in the winter.
how our team prepares for winter operations. We start preparing for winter months in advance. Every year, we take a systematic and thorough approach to reviewing lessons learned and proactive enhancements that can be made. We also liaise with city partners, including public works and traffic operations. This helps ensure there is a shared understanding of priority areas during winter storms. We also review the operating procedures for winter and severe storms for our bus and rail networks. Last year, the severe storm schedule pilot was introduced. This year, it has been formally integrated into our standard operating procedures for bus operations. Additionally, based on lessons learned from last winter, we have updated our Line 1 extreme weather procedures. Next slide, please. The severe storm schedule for buses will be implemented on weekdays when the forecast calls for 31 centimeters or more of snow or other similar extreme conditions. When the severe storm schedule is activated, bus service will follow a modified Saturday schedule with weekday peak hour elements added, such as school trips and 200 series connection service. Operationally, this allows approximately 70% of the articulated buses that normally operate to be removed from service. Para Transpo service is not impacted by this schedule change. For customers, we provide as much notice as possible through all of our communication channels. The plan is activated 39 hours in advance of the severe storm or 87 hours before if it is going to be implemented on a Monday. Next slide, please. For Line 1, our winter readiness plan is activated months in advance in coordination with RTM. This includes snow removal plans, checking heat on rail switches, snow fencing, and installing winter carbon strip equipped pantographs on the trains. We have reviewed our previous winter operations, and based on lessons learned, we have made several proactive enhancements for this upcoming winter. They include improving the process for communications, planning, and coordination with RTM. This includes having an operational plan developed and reviewed by both teams for each storm. Coordinated enhanced weather monitoring and forecasting, allowing RTM and our team to make operational decisions earlier. Enhanced field and control room monitoring for early warning signs of electrical anomalies. Also, RTM has procured a diesel-powered tow vehicle to help move trains if needed. This new equipment is slated to be available in approximately 3 weeks' time. Additionally, RTM has now started to apply anti-icing solution to the overhead catenary wires in key areas. Lastly, there's been an increase in the number of winter carbon strip pantographs installed on the trains. Next slide, please. Since the opening of Line 1, we have recorded over 50 freezing rain events, and only 2 have had significant impacts to Line 1 operations. Both occurred last winter. Based on lessons learned, we have adjusted our severe winter weather procedures for Line 1 service. During freezing rain events, key areas for enhanced monitoring in the field and using our control room CCTV cameras have been identified. Additionally, RTM will be closely monitoring train diagnostics to allow us to identify potential power-related issues earlier. For extreme winter weather, we are taking advantage of our enhanced weather monitoring and forecasting and identifying instances where service may be impacted. During these extreme weather events, service adjustments may be required. This may include proactive suspension of service to specific segments or all of Line 1. This will help ensure the safety of our staff and customers and the protection of track infrastructure and vehicles, which will allow a quicker resumption of full service. Should this occur, all communication channels will be used to inform customers. Thank you, merci, and now I'll pass it over to Lisa.
Thank you, Joanne. Merci. Comme nos opérations, notre équipe de communication
Our
travaille
communications team is working for months in advance to prepare for winter.
to communicate early and often to help customers plan and stay ahead of information during severe weather events. With this goal in mind, our team uses several tactics across all channels before the winter storm starts and during it. Some of the tactics that are used before winter weather starts are leveraging our Next Stop blog post to explain to customers how we get ready for winter, updating our website and sharing our winter videos to provide an overview of our winter operations. Our team has also reviewed and updated our social media posts to ensure that they provide clear and helpful information and reminders for customers. Should the severe storm schedule be implemented, we will also share a public service announcement and work with our media partners to reach as many customers as possible. During a storm, our team publishes several service alerts on our website, shares social media posts, and text messages directly to consumers to ensure that they continue to have the latest information. Should the severe storm schedule be implemented, we have information at stations and bus stops to communicate any changes that may occur. Additionally, the travel planner will be updated to show customers how their trip may change. Our team will continue to review our communications during storms and make adjustments as needed to continue to support our customers as best as possible. I'll now hand it over to Rauia.
Thanks, Lisa. Good morning. Bonjour à tous. Un plaisir d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui.
A pleasure to be here today. You'll remember that in May last year, we made a presentation to the committee on improving real-time customer information update. I'll be giving you a further update today.
Recent improvements to OC Transpo's real-time information systems. In the past, our information channels and travel tools only provided real-time information for a trip once the bus had started its route. This meant that at the first stop of a route, customers always saw a scheduled time and did not know if there was a live vehicle assigned to serve their trip. As of about 2 weeks ago, I'm happy to report that real-time information is now provided up to 30 minutes before a bus starts its route, even as it's servicing previous routes on its trip sequence. This means that real-time information is provided at the first stop, including at busy terminus stations like Herdman, Tunney's, and Blair. This is true for all information channels, the transit app, the 560-560 SMS service, the 560-1000 IVR, and the transit information screens. We feel that this is a step in the right direction and will greatly improve customer experience. We continue to work on updating our AI to an industry standard GTFS real-time feed coming in 2024. GTFS real-time will bring even more convenience and options for customers to plan their trip and to stay informed. Next slide, please. So you'll recall this past June, we retired the old OC Transpo iOS app and endorsed the Transit app, offering enhanced features for users in the Ottawa area. We are monitoring customer usage and have seen a nice rise in the intake of the Transit app. The numbers in the table that you see compare the months of October from last year to this year. In approximate terms, the numbers of unique riders who've used Transit was about 95,000 in October, up from 60,000 for the month last year, and was 31,500, up from 18,000 on opened 9 times in October. And that monthly downloads have more than doubled. We're preparing to launch yet another system very soon, which will provide additional benefits. Most importantly, canceled trips will be clearly marked with a strike-through in the app. This will happen automatically when the trip is canceled in the control room and will not rely on manual processes to send out associated alerts. This will eliminate a lot of confusion and frustration for customers, where today you might only see a scheduled time for a canceled trip. The update will also enable crowdsourcing capabilities within Transit's Go feature. Customers who choose to use the Go feature for their trip will be helping other customers with enhanced real-time information. A happy side effect of that is that fun features within the app will be enabled, like collecting points and the leaderboard. Thanks, Chair. That's the end of my update. Next slide.
Thank you, Rauia. Bonjour à tous. Je veux parler de la sujet.
Hello, everyone. I'll be talking about the wheel-bearing issue.
And the next slide. At the October meeting, I showed this slide, which shows the 2 streams of work that are concurrently underway for the wheel hub assembly. I will focus today on the item that is bolded in red, which is one of several measures required to return us to stable service. Next slide, please. Currently, as part of the Alstom safety note, the axle hub assemblies are required to be replaced every 60,000 kilometers. This restriction is complicated by supply chain issues and requires careful management of the fleet to sustain service. And it is why single car trains are being used today. As part of the mitigation plan work, RTG and Alstom have proposed adding pins to the restraining nut on the axle hubs. Doing this will extend the usable life of the axle hub assembly units. My team, along with TRA and RTG and Alstom, have been analyzing the feasibility of this option for the past several weeks. Next slide, please. In terms of next steps, an out-of-service train will be equipped with a set of axles with a proposed nut pinning installed to allow testing to occur. The testing may start as early as next week, and over the coming weeks, we will collect data. This data will be assessed by OC Transpo and TRA to determine if full deployment can proceed. If testing is successful, it may allow for an increase in the number of double car trains and allow for an increase in the passenger capacity of Line 1. Next slide, please. I want to finish my short presentation with our top priority at OC Transpo, safety. The rigorous inspections and maintenance requirements outlined in the Alstom safety note will not change and will remain in place until we have confidence that the program can be safely altered. Additionally, a review of the temporary speed restrictions will only occur once changes to the infrastructure have been completed, which includes the adjustments to the restraining rail already done and installation of the top of rail lubrication system, which is underway. These changes will also be assessed through precise instrumented bogey testing. If at any time we believe that these changes are not safe, we will not move forward with them. As always, we will continue to share updates on the outcome of testing with Transit Commission and Council. Thank you, and I will now hand it over to Troy.
On va commencer avec Paul Trabatat.
Merci, Troy. Bonjour, Commission des Transports. Aujourd'hui, je vais...
Hello. Today, I'll be giving an update on health and safety, employee injuries and customer injury rates, and also vehicle collision rates.
99 employee injuries at OC Transpo. For the month of October, there were 69 new injuries, and this is slightly lower than the monthly average of 70 injuries per month in 2023. The top 3 injury types year to date include struck, caught by an object, assault, and traumatic, stressful event. The customer injuries to date for October are unchanged from September at 1.23 injuries per 1 million trips. We continue to see that hard braking events on buses are the main reason for injuries that require medical attention for our customers. This supports what we're seeing in the next table on vehicle collisions. We've observed that both the total vehicle collision rate and the preventable collision rate exceed our safety management targets. Also, we have continued to observe that traffic light infractions are on the rise. So we continue to rely on our one-day mandatory driver refresher training for all OC Transpo employees who are authorized to operate an OC Transpo vehicle as part of their job duties, and our ongoing monthly safety observation campaigns that are focused on the Highway Act and distracted driving. All of this in aid of trying to reduce the number of collisions. The bar graph at the bottom shows the number of operators that have completed the one-day refresher training as of the end of October, and that number is 601. Et maintenant, je vais passer la parole à mon
Now I'll
collègue.
give the floor to my colleague, Troy. Thank you.
Thank you, merci, Paul. Bonjour, Monsieur le Président, les conseillers.
Hello. Hello, councillors. Mr. Chair. Like in previous meetings, we'll be giving you an update on Para Transpo on-time performance for buses and train.
Throughout the year, the Para Transpo's on-time performance has been quite consistent and has normally been between 92 and 95%. And for the on-time performance for the month of November remains steady at 93%. Next slide, please. With regards to the telephone booking line response times, additional resources and the reorganization of the OC Transpo, Para Transpo call centers, as well as other technology improvements have been implemented over the past few years. And this was following direction from the Transit Commission to improve the customer service experience as well as reduce call times. These changes continue to yield positive results. Customer wait times have consistently remained below the 15-minute threshold and have been on average between 3 and 5 minutes. Des réseaux supplémentaires,
additional resources and the reorganization of the call center and other technology improvements have been implemented following on from the recommendations from the committee. These changes continue to give positive results. Response times are lower than 15 minutes and on average are between 3 and 5 minutes. Thank you.
So with regards to how our customers are choosing to book their trips, the majority of customers continue to use the phone. Customers choosing the online method remains at approximately 10% of all book trips. However, there is some variability from day to day. The online booking remains an option for some customers and provides additional flexibility in how our customers can schedule the trips with Para Transpo. Our experience is not out of line. It's very much in line with other properties that have done this, and we do anticipate that it will increase gradually over time. Slide, please. For the month of November, the number of customer complaints per 1,000 trips decreased to 2.8 from the month of October. Complaints are primarily related to topics related to the servicing information and fares. For the month of November, le nombre de clients
for the month of November, the number of complaints per 1,000 trips went down to 2.8, and most of the complaints dealt with the categories you can see on the screen.
It may also be impacted by the significant increase of the number of trips that we're delivering, which is good news. We're now delivering a little bit more, approximately more than 15,000 more monthly trips delivered. So we believe that might be having a bit of an impact on the statistic. However, at this time, we don't see any specific trends, but we'll continue to monitor, report on any results and any findings. On to Para Transpo ridership. Para Transpo ridership continues to exceed the forecasted ridership for this year. We continue to see the strong ridership increases, and for the month of November, a little over 70,600 trips were delivered, approximately 11,000 over the forecast for the month. Next slide, please. De Para Transpo continue de suivre que celle observée tout au long de l'année. Reste plus élevé que l'année précédente. Cette tendance s'est poursuivie au budget forecast generating 198 which is up slightly from October. We'll highlight some of the with November with the system or the OC station, the stage 2 extension. Milestone was achieved. 2 brief interruptions to service. The work that required to do time, we had to get energized, leaving us one. There's no issues. was not able to continue and start the off station. Once we technicians was able to continue along the term, but for that while that train was parked at the as well to remove and isolate control center unable to force that and safety of the workers as well as our customers. We need to know on stations until that verification was in the Saturday. Failure was which until if you are one. Once our special counsel and get this and for our customers. Next slide.
The conventional bus 97.4% for November. There was some constant. We 5%. Bus reach active.
Once the increases since September of this year, but we recognize and that will so as I just mentioned, approximately 40 over. Is approximately 20%, 21%. Is up compared to 28% in October. The top 3 routes experiencing the highest number of undelivered trips remains replacement bus service and routes experienced a 4.2. It's just a
This table shows at 1 minute time of the schedule, you can see that the performance is between 72 and 75% during the past year. It is stable at 93% for November.
Similar to my previous slide, as mentioned at the last TC, we're still working on the best metric to report on-time performance for trains and for bus routes that operates with similar frequencies. Where evenly spaced and regularity of service can be more important to customers than the exact time of arrival. So we're still working on that, and we'll have more information on that in the new year. Next slide, please. We move on into ridership at this point. So ridership for the month of November is still being finalized, so we don't have that to present today. We will circulate the November data via memo when the information is available, but I am able to provide an update on the October ridership. So as mentioned in the memo that was issued on November 28th, ridership for the month was 6.4 million customer trips, representing a 15% increase from October of last year and a 3% decrease from September of this year. Ridership for the 12 months ending October 2023 was 1.3% higher than the 12-month period ending a month earlier at 62.5 million trips. We'll continue to monitor and report on ridership levels and on ridership recovery trends. And as I mentioned, we will issue a memo with regards to the November ridership when that information is available. And then the last slide is fare revenue for Line 1 and conventional buses. Budgeted fare revenue for the O train and conventional bus service for the month, November, was 15.6 million. Fare revenue, so that was the budgeted fare revenue was 15.6 million. Fare revenue actually achieved for the month was 13.7, up from 13.3 in 2022. So I believe at this point that concludes our presentation. We're happy to take any questions. Thank you. Merci.
Okay, thank you very much. Merci, René, Matthew, Joel, Amanda, Roya, pardon me, Richard, Paul, and Troy. It's an extensive update. Lots going on with OC Transpo. We don't have any delegations, so we will go straight to questions for staff from committee members. And Councillor Hill is first up.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just want to recount a story. Yesterday, I was traveling on the 270 North at 7:24 in the morning. We were on Woodruff. We went through a green light on Medhurst Drive when a small red Nissan cut through illegally through east to west on that site. Our driver, Cash was his name, hit the brakes, but he did so in a somewhat gentle way, angled the bus away from the Nissan and avoided a collision. And it was purely based on the skill of his driving that we didn't have something fairly terrible happen. I spoke to him after, I gave him some appreciation, but I just want to highlight publicly the great work that our drivers do and the training system that you guys provide so that you can keep our riders safe. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Hill. Councillor Brockington.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to you, and thank you to staff for the presentation today. Mr. Holder's presentation touched upon the nut pinning testing that is about to happen early in the new year. And I'm seeking clarification on what exactly are we looking for during the test? What are you measuring or studying to ensure that you are then satisfied to put all the cars into service?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. So the testing will occur in two main phases and is pretty extensive. So the first element of the testing involves an assessment of new hubs which have been provided by Texelis, the manufacturer, to Alstom, that will be retrofitted with the pins. So they are now in the country. They are being fitted to one particular LRV in 3 locations on 3 of the bogies. Once we have those new axles fitted with the nut pinning, we will run that vehicle as an out-of-service vehicle on the line during regular service, but not carrying passengers, and we will run 1,500 kilometers on that vehicle. We will then do a strip down. We will look at the hub. We will do measurements of the We call there's a whiplash measurement, there is a wheel back-to-back measurement, and there is a pry bar test measurement that is part of the containment that is currently in place through Alstom Safety Note. And we will check, are there any anomalies associated with those particular measurements? In addition to that quantitative testing, we will be tracking every day the progress of that vehicle. We'll be making sure that an operator reports back on any particular anomalies that they are experiencing with the vehicle, with the train control system, with the onboard propulsion system, whether there's any vibrations detected. And the basis of us being able to say we are comfortable to continue with the testing will be we've had no anomalies, we don't see anything untoward, and that the quantitative measurements that have been taken are within the criteria, within the thresholds that have been set by Alstom. So that's phase one, which is on new hubs. We will also be retrofitting hubs that have achieved the 60,000 kilometer, and we will be providing nut pinning to those vehicles, those axles and those vehicles. We will then begin phase two testing, which is having those vehicles running as a test train without passenger service, and we'll be running those for a period of up to 30,000 kilometers over several weeks, so that we have a longer period to assess any potential degradation in the axle hub assembly.
That's very good. Thank you for that explanation. And at no time during the testing phase will passengers be on the trains. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we will run the 1,500 kilometers on the vehicle that is fitted with new axles and pins without passengers.
Okay.
And it's only until we've made that assessment that we will allow that vehicle to then go into service.
Okay, fair enough. Switching gears completely to the route review, can we just get an update on, since the last meeting, you've probably continued to refine the final set of modifications to routes based on input, not just from the public, but members of the commission and council. When will OC Transpo make a final decision on the modifications to bus routes?
Thank you, Chair. So yes, we've been working very hard over the past couple of months, refining what we brought to commission, working very closely with councillors, taking on additional feedback from the public. We are working through the planning and scheduling phase right now. We're currently ascertaining our timelines. We're working through our deliverables, and all that to say we anticipate having a more firm date of implementation in the new year.
Okay, thank you. Will maps be provided to Transit Commission members at some point, and we see that?
Chair, yes, absolutely. Currently working through the document. My team document is currently 16 gigabytes in size. We'll to revise and make it a little bit more palatable. So we'll have some commissioners.
Okay. And a term that I have mixed up more than like, and I take full ownership for this, and that is service delivery time performance. Two, my service delivery is OC Transpo run that time performance is whether it's a very small window of 5 minutes. Bus service delivery to 99.9. What's your objective time performance, which is nowhere near 0.5%?
Downtown, 88%.
we're aware, and that is part of the same. You've listed some steps that you make. The same type of objectives to get a different that you need to do to. Okay, I appreciate the update, and I'll continue to listen to my colleagues' questions. Thanks.
Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the presentation. In the it was warm that depending on the it's going to be activated. Is that like service day or might customers suddenly change a regular weekday schedule to that enhanced Saturday schedule?
The main driver from the bus operators that they're going to be working on their alternate schedule, as well as implementing all of the changes into the system. In terms of communications, that's when our communication will go out across all of the various channels.
So there would be no scenario where the level of service changes midday for the customer.
And that's correct.
Okay.
So once you're stopped in,
line one on days with extreme, what's the, or have sort of
With regards to line one, we know that the trains handle very, very well the snow conditions, and actually in most situations when it's snowing, running, help to keep the tracks and then the infrastructure clear of any sort of buildup. When it comes to the ice accumulation, we don't have a specific threshold, but what I can share is once if the forecast is pushing towards the upper limits of the specifications, that's when we considering that changes. Or alternative goals outlined, we will have field staff and our TM will be doing their observations through the control center as well as on the field. If we're starting to see some electrical anomalies, those types of things, that's
going does that take into if 560 coming in 6 minutes with the little asterisk, does that factor recovery time that would be in the schedule, or is that just based on the bus's geographic?
If I could clarify, do you mean if there's let's say a layover in between trips?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it will factor that in.
Okay, and then let's say that bus pulls a Honey's pasture or with a loop late and drops up recovery time, and it drops up its customers and then has to proceed past its first stop, so to the washroom or something. Well, has that just doesn't show us, oh, my bus
to confirm in that specific scenario, but if it passes off and the system registers but given that the station.
Yeah, I think on the transit app, I understand that, but or sees it and looks at it on the screen exclusively at the station, right? They're not, lo and behold, the bus is actually sitting there in the layup, right? So consideration worth The Oh, okay. Last question. In terms of the canceled trips, I know that earlier in the year you had mentioned, well, I think I asked a question or somebody asked a question and you had responded and said that the canceled trips that are presented are full canceled trips, right? From terminal to terminal or include Chinese to a midpoint. Yeah. Full and partial? Yeah. Okay, so even a partial trip would be counted as one cancel. The fulls I'm reporting on. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Kavanaugh.
About the transit app. It's something we were talking about on the term of council, and it was coming. It was it how riders use numbers, how many hits you have, but do you know percentage of how many riders actually use the app?
Yeah, thank you, Chair, for the question. The table does show the number of unique riders who opened the app, the transit app in the month of October. So that was roughly 95,000.
95,000
Yeah.
persons. Okay. I wonder if, you know, what demographics are using it. And I was concerned about older adults. I'm the liaison on older adult issues. And I just want to make sure that they're knowing about the app. Sometimes people just don't hear about things. They just do what they've always been doing. It would be very helpful that people wouldn't have to go to the bus stop too early if it's cold out, if it's not going to come. Do we sort of look into that just in terms of the demographics and perhaps maybe even give help to people to learn how to use it or install it?
Thanks for the question, Chair. I don't believe we track demographics of downloads of the app. It's certainly something we can look into. It may be difficult because users would have to self-declare somewhere in the process. As far as communicating, I would have to pass that on to one of our comms staff.
Okay. All right, thank you. Did you want to reply?
All right. Yes, Mr. Chair. I think that's an interesting idea to explore. We can certainly look into the feasibility of exploring some sort of an orientation materials for older adults in terms of helping them orient to the app. So that's something we can definitely look into for next year.
Yeah, no, I think it would be helpful to make sure it's being it's not assumed that everybody just knows how to use things. Out there taking the bus, it would be we for 3 days show and the concern OC Transpo to the council services, but it was the 8 in the morning trying to get to work. Madame Okar and to just so you know, because like that particular route is one of the core routes that talk to Pat extensively. You know, the core route, if for change and don't with it, because it's a reliable commuter route. What would pattern like that?
Merci, Monsieur le Président, pour la question. L'enjeu que nous avons, on le sait, c'est la fiabilité.
The challenge we have is reliability. We're working hard on this. It's a long-term issue. By tomorrow, for a year, have to new operators enough because we needed, but satisfied. But it's instant low. To be retired must be kept because the e-bus program was delayed because we the values and then we consulted the council and we wasted many precious months there. We have a solid plan, however, and in February, I'll be pleased to come back before you and tell you what our plan. It's a long-term plan. I appreciate times that to be reminded in to good service to our cleaning between 8 team, review the survey and plan to what's coming up today, what is ahead, and see if we can face all these challenges. So we're continuing that work, but at the same time, we're developing a very long plan. We'll introduce to you at the beginning of next year.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I hesitate to do, share those things with you because the councillor liaison for OC Transpo is very good, but it's just when there was a pattern, it really concerned me. And I had to bring it to attention. Before route changes, I want to make sure everybody knows. So appreciate it. In terms of the winter storm days, assuming communication will be announcements to get the message out, just like parking bans we do around here. So real quick, so that we can tell everybody, hey, looks like tomorrow's going to be a winter storm day, and for those taking the bus, so they know, to make sure you pass it on.
That is correct.
That's correct. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'd like my colleagues watching on the route review and with Pat and team on this. We'll continue to work on changes that we know of, so that you may not know of. For example, the 15 out there where so
Thank you. So
Question.
And begin while you're conducting the app and what that we card sample is identify with the app.
Through the more than that, we need to work to add new layers. Very important. That's
Great, thanks, because this is a pilot and we do intend to should it be successful? I think that sort of data would be really useful. With respect to the update on 9 shelters and seating, the temporary scaffolding would be removed. Do we have any update at the time, and I probably have this in my email, about adding
the actual path.
by pressure, or I just
That, Mr. It is sponsored. It's Ottawa. So that's bulk costs for that event for us.
sponsored by sort of not-for-profit type organizations and not business organizations.
Be sponsored by anybody, but yes, but at this
But
time
this
it's sponsored
particular
by
case.
these nonprofit organizations. That's correct.
Okay, and they come voluntarily every year, or do you seek that out?
We seek that out.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Next question. This is a really low-level question, but I'm curious what you collect. And I did after the presentation, but
Enable a go time leaderboard.
points to
Yeah.
like online. Okay,
It's a fun feature.
okay, excellent. Thank you. With respect to the red light infractions and the fact that they're kind of higher than we would like them to be, how are those tracked specifically? Like, are they tracked because you receive a red light ticket, or how are we aware of the red light infraction?
Thank you, Chair. So the red light infractions, that information comes to us via another department from within the city. I believe it's from Fleet Safety. And we maintain and
Okay, excellent. So like track the
like is uh,
Thank you very much. Messaging.
Mr. Chair,
That's it's at that station. So is there that we know of
Yes, I do, Renee. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chair. The shelters are still currently arriving, as we see they're starting to take inventory in. And mid-January, it'll take weeks to, and that, but I would say we're up and running by end of January, February.
That's great to hear. And I've permitted 9.
I would.
Go actively placing trees there. And
yes, we have when she contracted with a landscaping company that they will be some additional trees. Definitely heading in the right direction there.
Okay, so much question implementation for Brockington. My understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, was that this would not review changes would not be implemented until line 2 was running and open.
Chair, it's not firm like that. I would love that. However, if we are ready with the tram line and we're not ready with the route review, we'll launch the service. One without review, because if you remember, we were prepped for. We can apply for. However, a lot of job to do. We want to make sure that Havana just make sure, because we yes with review.
I appreciate that. I guess just to put some clarity on it, the route review changes though couldn't be implemented before the line 2 is launched, because they play off of each other for some of those routes and the connectivity up with that new line, just to get confirmation that ideally they happen together, but the actual route review itself was changing.
Clarity, we can launch the service without the route review. We implement the full 2 and 4.
Perfect. Okay, thank you for that clarity. There was something mentioned in the presentation, proactive suspension. And I'm just wondering what it looks like. Talking trains build up. What would proactive suspensions look like?
The question there, case. In January this year, unfortunately, we had to deal with the freezing rain, and we came here and we were very frank. We missed the boat for sure, because we could do more and definitely better. In April, we did team that we will monitor each hour to make sure that we don't have. We'll give heads up for sure council prior to this, but the thing today is to share with this is something that we have on our radar and we are prepared. I think implemented a lot of build up the to help us vehicles and a lot of things that we will continue to do to avoid cutting the service. However, to take any risk with our passengers and having them stuck in between station in the LRVs. So that's why we want to bring this today to the youth to tell you that if it's needed for safety reason, we could do that, but that doesn't mean we will do it. We will do our max for sure to be able to deliver the service.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. I just have two more local, but they involve several wards, two local issues kind of to raise. So, obviously, been major issues with six. Counselors around wondering how to have process.
When we get some down one of the net just is about that right now. And they deliver to so is factors either frequent or even types. You know, is a key area. We know it's a busy area. We should avoid those cancellations on those routes as much as possible. But it's one of those things that we just need to minimize the impact.
Okay, thank you very much for questions. Carlton affects two wards, but obviously more connection. And this for that fully good. Just an Ottawa controversial. Just want to know what
the remaining election for the lighting is postponed
January to get those. We may whether to leave it open for people to access the southern side of the Brer.
Okay, I hope we do not chain it off and that there is capacity to allow for things like ski trails or others who may want to snowshoe over. It's a fantastic connection, but why build a bridge if it's only going to be open for some months of the year? Let's hopefully we can open it for all months of the year. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Hill.
Thank you very much, Chair Gower. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. The first one on the marketing strategy. I recognize the importance of our safety marketing. My I think gridlock on the wanted to see perhaps action or something to that effect, because I just want to make sure that of the scarce resources we're investing into marketing, that we're hitting the button that's going to.
Mr. Chair, I think it's important to keep in mind that the goal of our safety campaign, which is to get the creative in front of as many people, but our safety campaign was really geared around safeties that had been high by our chief safety officer and team. It doesn't necessarily interfere with the marketing that we are doing, and certainly the issues that you've brought up will be on the floor of consideration for next year.
Thank you very much. On at the
I think the previous update that I provided, I'd indicated that a survey had been undertaken and we were doing analysis of the results from that survey, and we were hoping to come back before Christmas, so around now. Unfortunately, the data that we have looked at from that survey seems to be corrupted. The survey needs to be reinitiated. So that will take place in January. So that unfortunately there's a delay with coming back with that information, but hopefully later in January, we'll be able to come back with that detail on the track cant in the curves.
Okay, thank you for that. And my last question, with regard to the going to under circumstances where, there's vertical pressure being applied to this that simulates those the lateral forces, or is it simply applying pressure vertically straight down? I guess so that I understand the testing process. Obviously, the last thing I would want is for us to, in the search of a solution to this problem, be in fact creating an entire assemblies and making it more unsafe. Thank you.
So the testing that I described earlier on is referring to the in-field testing, and it is taken by the manufacturer itself, by Texelis, and so they did do several technology process. They have done an assessment of the strength of able to provide go-ahead pens. It's been done by the manufacturer with the supervision of all.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks very much. List. something I want to say, yeah, that's certainly then just most interesting is in some 16% of those this in October. You had noted the month commission that the maintenance side of things for being that kind of stability that
Chair, no.
oh, okay. Okay, my next question then is the goal is it extreme weather where there's spending service that goes below the service delivery threshold?
Chair, the answer is that should not affect the payment to RTG based on the decision that we will take together proactively. However, we will never pay for non-deliverable kilometers. So if we don't run the trains, we will not pay for the kilometers because we won't have any. However, some payments will need to be done because it's normal because it will be our decision.
Yeah, and so that was my it's because it's our decision, because it's proactive. Like, we can't penalize somebody. A little bit more. Just, or are we gonna put the water barrel just kind of partially or fully loaded?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So the vehicles will be loaded to AW2 for the purpose of the out of service testing.
And that represents?
That's full load.
Okay.
So we have AW1, AW2, AW3. AW3 would be considered to be crush load. But what we experience in regular peak service would be the AW2 loading.
Okay, thanks. And I'd also remiss if I didn't poke at this again. Is there any chance of us seeing the
Chair, unfortunately, the answer is no. However, as I said, RTG will report to this Transit Commission a condensed report with the findings, with the root cause, and the sustainable solution.
Okay, and when will that report be available?
We're still working on it, but for sure, before the end of next year, for sure. But I hope that will be sooner, but the intent is to have it before next year, before the end of next year.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you very much.
Okay, Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you, Chair. This is something from the last session. One of our commissioners had asked about ads in transit stations, and I just wonder where that ended up. I actually bumped into Mr. Caricato, and he was asking me about it, and I said, I don't know. This was something that we had passed, but is that still being activated?
Absolutely, Mr. Chair. The ads in transit stations are beginning now. We've just recently, 11 stations downtown have been taken over, if you will, by the Ottawa Senators. So we have ads running and murals running throughout those, and we will be encouraging more and more advertising throughout the transit system, both on lines 1 and line 2 and 4 when those open up.
Great. So is that a significant source of revenue for us?
No,
No?
Mr. Chair, not significant. I mean, we're in the process right now of exploring our advertising, sponsorship, and business development plans to see how we can augment that and really start to increase the revenue that we get from that. But it will never be a system in which advertising and sponsorship can fund transit altogether. So it's right now it represents a very small part of our revenue. Increase it to
I understand, pardon me, Roya has an update on one of the issues that came up earlier in the discussion.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, it was to Councillor Kavanaugh's question about demographic data. So staff has let me know that we do have information on who uses the app through a survey that's performed through the app quarterly. I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I wanted to correct that. Yes, we do have a site into the age groups of users of the app.
Can that be shared when you have that available? Sent
Yeah,
around?
we can certainly bring it to future meeting.
Okay, I'm seeing no more questions. I just wanted to say thank you to OC staff again for organizing this year's drive to support local food banks. The OC Transpo staff, councillors' offices, staff from across city departments participating, and great result with the amount of donations coming. Also, staff's support for the on-demand. I know Matthew mentioned that staff did allowed Councillor Duda for ride along, but there were also they were quite happy with having that demonstration and provided some good feedback for staff to consider. And either was with councillors' requests to improve stop time. So there's your customer service communication, and so hopefully we can continue to make a responsible choice. How there are lots going on with OC Transpo, lots of
Thank you, team, for all your work.
So we're going to move on to the next item on our agenda. It's titled Council Motion Number 2022-0309. This is a motion approved by Council in December of last year. And part of that motion was that each year we will invite representatives from the unions that work with OC Transpo to make a presentation. So this is a result of Good to see you, Clint. Welcome. And Clint to represent the transit union meeting. René.
Beaucoup, Mr. Chair. Bonjour, Clint. On the three.
OC.
Rate 6%, EIPP 2%. As governance review, as you just said, the council has the opportunity of our trans once a year presenting many views and concerns. This direction was based on regional leaders at our OC meeting early this fall. Extended a formal invitation to all for union presidents in November, inviting QP concerns directly to OC and myself. The president of not be and didn't provide a reason, but with him before meeting, unfortunately. And Crabtree, the president of ATU 279, continue to work closely with partners to address concerns and maintain a positive working relationship. We know that open communication is a critical component of creating a better OC Transpo and improving staff morale.
So good morning, members of the Transit Commission. My name is Clint Crabtree. I'm the President Business Agent of ATU Local 279. We ran to speak before face these front operators are a multitude and trip cancellation late buses. Operator barriers became paramount when public dissatisfaction increased, partly due to an the employer the facing and receive the brunt of the public's dissatisfaction. This negative work has wide impacts to their health and wellness, as well as work-life balance. I have the other half of the are coming from brand new recruits who have completed training successfully, but when faced with the harsh reality and the unrealistic scheduling and the operators by the enemy to work-life balance in this job. This all comes at a cost to the taxpayers of the City of Ottawa. Maintenance members were faced with layoffs of this year, understaffed, and meet the mechanics and body tech are doing overtime to make sure work is also being contracted to trades and undesirable shifts. ATU members are often repairing buses that have been contracted out, which causes increased maintenance and entire bus fleet in disarray. OC Transpo is having great difficulty recruiting 310Ts right now, which are truck and coach mechanics. The harsh reality here is that we are faced with offer weekends that only achievable by working at OC Transpo. My hope and what we'd like to achieve for challenges and work for them to speak. We have had meetings and established a working group on morale. And ATU 279 understands how members work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Opportunity to committee members if they have questions for Mr. Crabtree. Councillor Leeper.
Yeah, Mr. Crabtree, thank you. Clearly, to hear a bit more about the maintenance. Or do you feel it's
So at we have a local 50 forth. So my members from feedback is that mechanics waiting on a daily basis is what I get. The jobs were properly and the work was given out, and it was given out to the mechanics, body techs, garage tenants, whoever it may be. That work would be done more efficiently, done efficiently.
so long stretches during the day when work isn't being done?
Correct. Also, when you send work out to outside vendors, the buses stay at that outside vendor longer than we can turn it back on the road in-house. So we have, I have many examples of vendors having buses on their property for quite a long period of time. I've even visited those properties in the past and monitored those buses being on the property and not moving and not being fixed. Now, these buses, if they were on property and our mechanics, our body techs, the people that we have at OC Transpo, the members of A2279, were able to fix those buses properly and get them back on the road, the turnover would be faster, in our opinion, than having it sit on a vendor's property and they take their time getting that bus back on the road.
How long have you seen buses?
We've seen buses for months.
Is it possible that they've got parts or supply chain as well, or?
That could be. That wasn't looked into, to be honest with you, but we do get the work orders. We know what's being fixed on those buses. We have the opportunity in-house to state within 10 days that we can do the work better, we can fix it. We put a proposal together and we give it to the employer. But having said that, with the amount of work that's needed to be done, the reason is that it's contracted out because they don't feel that we'll be able to do it in-house. And then you see the buses spend a long period of time.
That's helpful. Thank you. Weekend work. How common is that position in the shop?
Well, you have shifts at OC Transpo that are weekend oriented shifts. And the desire for people right now, work-life balance, so on and so forth, is that, you know, they want weekends off. I mean, we know that's not sustainable all the time because this is a 24-hour operation. A lot of buses can on the weekend because less services out.
Right.
But having said that, we find that people and are leaving or not 10T mechanics to come over to those. It's very problematic because they're go to those auto shops. They get weekends off and weekends. Sit down and work with the employer. We're always doing that. We go to a scheduling working group every time the new work is implemented and coming out for the operators to book. But to say you got to throw money at it to make it better, that is the truth. There is going to be a cost to improve it and make it better. But I think that cost to improve it and make it better may attract the ridership that we want on that bus. And we can start getting people to actually pay for the bus instead of having free rides around the city. And it'll go a long way in improving the service that we have.
Excellent, thank you. Can you just expand, the other point you raised was fare evasion. How frequently are you hearing from your members about, you know, heated interactions that they may be engaged with a passenger who's not paying. Operator tries to say, hey, but you've got to pay. Ultimately, I know OC Transpo has implemented some procedures where ultimately the operator should not engage too far. But how frequent is this, and what are you hearing from your members?
Fare evasion happens every day, all day, every day. I mean, it's the transit users that are not paying fare know when and where to do it. I mean, we don't have fare inspectors, so to speak. I think we have a group, about 5 or 6 of them, that aren't even really out there doing their job right now. But if you did have fare inspectors out there, I think it would be, you know, obviously out in the public eye, that you may get a ticket or you may get something for fare evasion, may go a long way. I mean, it's happening all the time. And even when we had fare inspectors out there in full force, which we only had a platoon, I think maximum of 10 at one given time, that they knew what time the fare inspectors were off work. They knew at 5 o'clock, Monday to Friday, those fare inspectors are no longer working. They knew fare inspectors weren't out there on the weekend. The public knows this, so they're not paying.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Crabtree, for your presentation today. I'll just follow up on my colleagues' questions on fare evasion. So the frustration with the drivers is that they really have no mechanism to enforce payment?
Yeah, I think ultimately OC Transpo has put policies in place that that advises the operators not to get into disputes with anybody about fare-related issues. But having said that, there is no mechanism. It's human nature. I mean, you have people coming on the bus and they're not paying. These are operators, but they still are taxpayers of the city as well. And you see people coming on the bus and not paying. It's frustrating to the operator. And some of them do say things. The policy is there not to say anything, not to engage, not to do anything. But they do say things and things happen. And unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast. I mean, they say things to people when they're not paying the fare. Right or wrong, they do it. And we advise as a union for them not to do it, but it does happen. So there's got to be a mechanism to track. And I've said this years ago, there should be a mechanism on the screen to track fare evasion when someone's not paying. So we know how many people are not paying on the bus on a daily basis. And it becomes part of the operator's job to track fare evasion. I mean, it's a simple button on the MDT screen that you push and you track fare evasion.
Yeah, thank you. I agree that that would be useful to have a better understanding of the issue. I know you mentioned that fare inspectors at one point we had 10. I thought we'd hired some back. I think we're getting an update at the next meeting on fare inspectors, are we? Maybe that's just a question for staff. I know I asked Mr. Scrimger a couple weeks ago if we had an update on the work of the fare inspectors. Do you know if there's an update coming? Is it the next Transit Commission meeting that we'll be having an update?
Chair, the answer is yes. Paul Trebutat on my team is in charge of those inspectors, and he will bring an action plan to address those issues that Clint and his members have shared with me a few months ago. Now we are on an action plan to address that.
Okay, thank you, Madam Amakar. And to just on the, you know, in your to Canada phenomena, do you have still ongoing safety issues? Any relation issue, or is it other issues? Speak a little bit about it.
Barriers, the shields and barriers that we have put in place have greatly reduced the confrontation is still there. Now it's just verbal harassment. People being injured on the job and being physically, that's greatly reduced by the barriers and shield. And that was fantastic to have those implemented, work into that at through our health and safety committees, the policy health and safety committee, to get those implemented back when John Manconi was here and we did a pilot project. So, but having said, just resigned 2 days ago, a 16-year bus operator. He's had enough. He's fed up. So, and this is from the feedback that I get from my members. This is not, anything other than that. This is feedback that I received from the member that resigned. I mean, the morale there is low. The morale is really bad, and people are just fed up, and they're looking for other ways to make a living, and it's not through OC Transpo anymore.
Okay, thank you for that. And thank you for the clarification. Just one tiny question on clarification. At the beginning, you mentioned who ATU 279 represents. So you represent both Para Transpo drivers and conventional bus drivers, that's correct?
I do.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for your presentation and answering my questions.
You're welcome.
Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Crabtree, for coming out today. I was looking at an Ottawa Citizen article from May 2022 when you were that morale was at an all-time low. And it was related to the federally implemented labor code for the 30-minute breaks every 5 hours. You were frustrated then. Has it improved at all? Is there any changes?
Listen, changes are trying to be made. There's no doubt. I mean, we have a working group on morale that we months ago that we are having. So we're working towards. Has it improved? But we are working on to make employer submit to me. It's a big priority. But is very low. The train to the because now all diesel rail operators will be trained to go to the diesel rail. Sometimes. So going up to be trained for diesel. The diesel rail has now been built. They should be booking. Now they're going back bus when they should be up and train down their lifestyle. The schedule's been turned up, so they're going back to bus. So now they're put as spare operators. So the other spare operators, the first place, then the majority, all operators, operator lane, but they work as spare operators. They circumvented actually when they booked. It worked. So it's just makes everybody frustrated. This is happening all the time. Couple of years. I mean, we went through employed at OC. We went through potentially now with a half-an-hour break from the federal government in the for 5 hours is a mess. To approve it. Is what is
you know, it's hard on suggestions for recruits, obviously, there's still, and more drivers where
for suggestions right now. I mean, I think you got to be honest with these people and when I first started, gonna do, and you know what? I think, and let them know their expectations. You know, I don't know what is being said to them when they're going through the training class or two, and then resign. And my training would be the cost of training is today, but or maybe more these people. That's
Thank you very much.
Thanks. The during ongoing consultations, like you mentioned earlier, that review actually achieving that. Towards improve like less interlining, ensuring that you know, schedules are created better around the CLC break and perhaps a better recovery time, I hope. How deeply have you been involved in those discussions, and are you seeing any progress with what you're requesting, at least for the future?
no, I mean, they involve us in the discussions. There's no doubt about it. They're trying, and I thank them for that. Involved in the route review. We actually have grievance officers, executive board members going out and doing the route review with the scheduling group as well. So are involving us in it. So that's working.
Okay, that's good to know. So at least looking ahead, there's a glimmer there, right? And it's just a situation right now, and probably for the next few months till after line 2 launches. And I will say, like in 2014, when I first applied, we were told, oh, you're not going to get a weekend off for 15 years. And I think I was fortunate that I was at the beginning of a blitz that's still happening, if I'm correct, and I ended up with a weekend in 2 years. But of course, that's not the expectation. And I think, can we ask questions to staff now or after? Yeah, okay. Is there so rolling off of that into staff questions, I guess. What do we tell our new recruits? Because I remember very well being at the Nepean Sportsplex in 2013 actually, and them telling us all of this stuff, like, oh, you're not going to get a weekend off for 15 years, you're going to be paid 50% during training, and all that stuff that apparently has been surprising some of our more recent recruits.
Chair, we have normally Olivia who's in charge of that. She will come next year, so she will be able to tell you exactly what we say. But I can tell you that we tell them the truth, and we exaggerate just to make sure that they understand. Unfortunately, I think you know that there is a shortage of staff, those who come, maybe they are not really willing to drive a bus, but they will just try. And when they get the job, unfortunately, they don't stay. And that's, I think we have shared those statistics during last TC that with retention, new bus drivers versus former bus drivers. So we can reshare that at the beginning of next year as well.
Okay, thanks very much. I think that information would be handy in guiding whatever you do in the future as well. But no, I'm happy to hear that you've been involved in the discussions for the review and that it's a glimmer for the future. I that was actually my only question for you. Thanks again.
Councillor Brockington, I think you had an additional question.
For staff. Is there anyone else for Mr. Crabtree?
Questions for staff is fine. Yeah.
Probably for you, but when I was on the library board, one thing that I think they did well is they, through various board meetings, presented a particular piece of operations of how the library does things to better educate trustees. I think in a case of scheduling, my comprehension is fairly low on issue. So I'd just like to plant with you, Chair, if maybe in the first half of next year, we could consider a staff presentation at Transit Commission, just going through the process. How do you schedule? What are all the factors at play here? How do you lessen or mitigate the impact on employees? We've heard today that this is impacting not just morale, but their family lives. How do you factor all that in? How do you look long-term to make improvements because the same thing isn't viable? So I just want to raise that with you and staff, and maybe at some point next year, we can have a presentation to better understand this whole process.
Councillors? Not seeing any hands up. Clint, I want to thank you again for being here and for sharing your perspective. I think it is really valuable for the committee to hear this. And thanks to your executive and your colleagues and your members who are here today. And, pass on our thanks. You are the front line of our transit system. You move our city every single day, early in the morning, late at night, on weekends, on holidays. And it's not always it's not always an easy task. It's often a difficult task. And we appreciate what you do to keep our residents safe and comfortable and secure as they move around our city. So thanks for being here, and look forward to welcoming you back in a year's time as well.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.
We need to receive this report. So is this report received? Received. Thank you. And we'll move on to item 4.2. I'm going to pass the chair over to Councillor DeRoche for the next segment, and we'll let staff take their positions. Should we take 5 minutes to reset? Good suggestion. Thank you.
Donc, je pense qu'on est prêt à commencer.
I think we're ready to start now. I think we had the majority of members here with us now. Ms. Amilcar, hello. So item 4.2 is next on the agenda.
From staff, I'll turn it to you, Madame. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Progress of the O-Train Extension project. Today, we will provide you with information on the status of construction for all 3 O-Train extensions. Over the course of the past few meetings, we have provided you with information on the progress of the O-Train Extension project, as well as plans for launching lines 2 and 4. Today, Michael Morgan, the director of our rail construction program, you know him very well, will provide a construction update on the Stage 2 LRT project. This year, construction on all 3 extensions has been impressive, and we have made significant progress. In the east, track construction is complete, and overhead catenary system installation is underway and will continue in 2024. Importantly, the connection of the catenary between Stage 1 and Stage 2 was recently completed. This is a key step towards testing of trains in the east. Once installation and electrical testing is completed, residents in the east will see vehicle testing along the new alignment between Blair and Jeanne d'Arc stations. Station construction is taking shape in the west. The cut and cover tunnels continue to progress with excavation complete, roof and wall pours advancing, and backfilling continuing. In the south, testing and commissioning is going well, and finishing works, including regulatory approvals and training, have begun. We look forward to an exciting 2024 with more progress on the east and west extensions, as well as the opening of the south extension. Once complete, the O-Train extensions delivered through Stage 2 will transform our transit system and realize the true potential of the O-Train, connecting residents and communities across the city. Next slide, please. Before I move forward to my colleague, I want to take the opportunity that I'm here today with you, because this is the last time that many of us will gather before the end of 2023. I want to take a moment to say a huge thank you for your support. Your support is so important for me, that drives me, and I want to say kudos, because I think it was a very fruitful year together working, and I'm very excited to come back next year. We have achieved many milestones together, I think, and I'm proud of that. I'm excited about what we will accomplish as we continue to work to improve transit service reliability, we know now, and customer satisfaction for sure. So I hope you will find time to enjoy with your loved one. J'ai très hâte de vous rencontrer à nouveau.
And I'm looking forward to meeting you again next year and to continuing our cooperation. And I'll give the floor to Michael, who will give us the update on phase 2 of the project. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Renee. Glad to be here. We're just having a little glitch here with the translated version, but we can proceed with the version that's on the screen. So I'm just going to provide an update on, go through the 3 segments, start in the east. So if we go to the next slide, you'll see a photo of Montreal Station. So Montreal Station is in a very advanced state. It's according to the contractor, they're at about 80% complete at this location. So they are in there working on elevators. They put in the canopy. They're in good shape at this station. If you go to the next slide, Jeanne d'Arc, this is the most advanced station in the east section. You see that they're doing the rehabilitation of the bridge kind of in the middle there. So kind of reimagining that space for pedestrians and cyclists and others who are coming to the station via bus or other means. At the same time, the station itself is in a very advanced state. It's at actually over 90%. So all of these stations are expected to be completed next year. Next station, Place d'Orleans. So a good shot there. So a few different buildings here, obviously the left-hand structure on Champlain Bridge, the middle structure connecting with the 2 pedestrian bridges. And then on the far side at the top of the photo, you have the new facility and the reconfiguration of the bus loop in that excuse me, location. So a lot of work going on here. This location is just over 70% complete. The next station, Convent Glen. So Convent Glen, again, not as much road work on this location anymore, but you see the station is coming along nicely, over 70% complete at this station. So a lot of very good work at the stations. If you go to the last one, Trim Station, just at the end of the road, obviously the very big structure. So this is where the Fairgate entrance is going to be kind of in the foreground, pedestrian bridge to get to the train system in the middle of the highway. So very good progress. No issues to report on the stations at all. Just on the next slide, we talk a little bit about the mobility impacts in the east. So there's still a lot of road work to be done in the east. And part of the project scope is to actually repave the entire 174 from essentially all the way to Trim. And so, you know, part of that is restoring the shoulder. Right now, there's essentially no safe shoulder on the highway. So that's why there's a speed reduction. Repave the entire highway, restore the shoulder. So still lots of activities, still lots of traffic impacts in the east going forward. Next slide, we'll just talk a little bit about the milestones that have been achieved. So Troy's mentioned it, Renee's mentioned it now, but connecting the catenary between Blair to the east section is a big, that physical interface is a big milestone. Did take us a couple of weekends to do that. But what that unlocks is now the next step is for us to finish the configuration of that catenary system essentially between Blair and Jeanne d'Arc, power up the traction power substation that's in the Montreal Road interleaf, Clover interleaf, and then we can put power in the overhead catenary. Once we have power in the overhead catenary, we can start to bring trains through there. And so right now, tentatively end of January to bring the first test train through there. But by the end of next year, we'll have trains going all the way through to Trim. Go to the next slide, just talk about the upcoming activity. So continue to work on all the stations. We need to get occupancy next year, get all the elevators approved next year. And then we're going to start and nearly complete train testing, but not quite in the year. We will start operator training on the east late next year. Go to the next slide, just in terms of the project update. So as part of putting up the catenary systems and verifying things, we did run into a challenge with the poles. And so we have lost a little bit of time. So we've lost about 60 days. And so we're roughly 115 days behind the original plan schedule. But for being 4 years into a project, that's not the end of the world. So still looking at a spring, that spring time frame for trial running and then opening. So that's the update on the east. Go to the west now. So I'll just walk you through each of the stations very quickly. So on the next one, Kitchissippi Station. So obviously this one's pretty tight into the community. Earlier in the year, we had a lot of time rock excavating. Excuse me. That's all done now. And so now we're on to building the station up. You can start to see the forms, the form and shape of the structure coming out of the ground. Obviously the temporary Roosevelt Bridge in the distance will come out once we put the train into service. The next one, Sherburne Station. Again, so this is in the actual cut area. So a lot of structures here. We need to get elevators. There's kind of an intermediate platform. So you don't really get a sense of the station now, but there is a lot of activity at that location. The next one, New Orchard. Again, so here you see the bottom of the screen where the tunnel kind of separates and widens to make space for the platforms. Then there'll be a bit of a center platform and you can drop down with the tunnels there. So that'll be an open air station. The platform area is under the open air section at the bottom of the page. In terms of the next slide, the cut and cover progress. So this, as was described earlier, the excavation for the cut and cover is now complete, which is very exciting. The invert, or I'll call it the floor of the tunnel, is 98% complete across the entire alignment. The walls are roughly 90% complete and the roof is roughly 84% complete. So we are expecting to actually finish the tunnel end to end, this 2.5 kilometer tunnel, roughly in March, April, May timeframe. Once that is done, then we're going to start installing the rail. The base plinths for the rail connections between Tunney's Pasture to this location are already underway. We'll have to continue that once the tunnel's fully covered. And next year is going to be about building rail in the system. So, a big milestone on the project. It's like we're turning over the system, going from heavy civil works to rail infrastructure and catenary works. You go to the next slide, just show you a bit of a picture. So as we finish the tunnel and we cover it up, it kind of disappears, you know? So 2 years ago, I showed up and I would brag about big holes in the ground, and now I'm showing up and bragging about the hole being gone and it being covered in. And so the tunnel is effectively being buried now. They're backfilling it now, which is good. All of the work and the rail work in this residential area will essentially go underground, save and except for the station. So a good progress there. And then just the last shot, one more shot of the cut and cover. This is kind of the far end of the line. This is where there's roughly just over between 200 and 250 meters of tunnel left to be built. Go to the next station, yeah, Lincoln Field. So very advanced. So there used to be on the kind of the lower end of the photo, there used to be a very large rock stockpile at that location, which has essentially been removed now. On this photo, what you see on the left-hand side is in the middle, there's the bus operator building. That's where the future bus loop is going to be, the train station in the middle. And then the right-hand side, this is all the existing Transway station, which will be torn down, and that will be kind of landscaped and given back to the NCC. For their use. So a lot of activity in this area. Unfortunately, we can't actually open up the new bus loop until the train is in service because of the space constraints required for the number of buses working through this location. If you go to the next one, Iris Station, very good progress here. Again, this one is kind of tucked in between the Pinecrest Creek, which we realigned, a series of utilities, and obviously Iris Road in the middle of the page there. The next shot, if you go down, you'll see a little bit kind of from ground level, Iris Station again, kind of coming together very nicely. Very good progress there. You see the row of concrete kind of blocks in the middle. That's going to hold the inter-track barrier. But you see they're essentially wanting to come through here with track in 2024. Go to Queensview Station, which is on the next one. So a lot of really great progress here. Obviously getting that pedestrian bridge in earlier this year was good. And then on the left-hand side, you see where the elevator bank will go in for people to access. There has been provisions made to the structure on the left-hand side of that photo to allow a future, if a developer came along and wanted to add a pedestrian bridge to that location, they could do that in the future. So the structure on the left has been set up to accommodate that. And then Queensview on the right, obviously you see the station there, the roof. We're into elevators, we're into finishing the station now. The next one, talk a little bit about Pinecrest. So you see in the distance, you see Pinecrest Station. So very good progress there. That was kind of tucked away a little bit, not as obvious depending on the direction you're going on the highway. Upper right is where the future bus loop will be. That's where if you're coming to this station, you're coming to the LRT in this neighborhood, this is where you will pick up, and the majority of the buses will come to this location as opposed to Queensview. You see the permanent on-ramp that's in place, and then you see just tucked away out of the picture is the temporary bus ramp, off-ramp. We are still planning on opening an off-ramp to general traffic this year. You know, the weather, I'm like, it's goodness gracious, like the weather on Friday, the weather on Monday is like just the gods have smiled on us, and so that's helping us quite a bit. If it was snowing and hailing, we'd be in trouble, but so far the weather's holding. We should be able to open that this year. We will have to close it temporarily over weekends next year to add the second lane. It's meant to be 2 lanes, 2 westbound off-ramp lanes. So we'll have to come back and do that, but this year is looking good. Bayshore Station, the next slide. Yeah, okay. Pinecrest Station, looking back, we talked about Pinecrest, you can go to the next one. Bayshore Station, so a lot of work at this location to build an additional emergency egress path, and so that's basically an underground tunnel that's going to go under the tracks to allow you to evacuate in the event of a fire. And so a lot of work there. Once that underground tunnel is built, then we'll be able to come through this area with the tracks. And if you go to the next slide, you start to see the tracks coming through. Obviously, Moody LMSF, the tracks are there. This is back through Moody Station. Moody Station road alignment's done. Station's very advanced. Quite a bit of progress has been made at this location. Then you go to the next slide, just show you kind of a shot of the maintenance facility. So the tracks are in at the maintenance facility. What's going to happen next year is once they finish the catenary installation on the east, that crew will move to the LMSF and they'll start putting up poles and catenary systems in the maintenance facility at Corkstown. The plan right now is for us to truck a vehicle over to this location kind of middle of next summer to be able to start early testing at this location using a test vehicle. terms of just some of the milestones, obviously, rail installation at the LMSF, the Queensview Ped Bridge, a new Woodruff pedestrian bridge, and then completion of the excavation. So that's obviously very good news for the residents in that area. If you go to the next slide, just looking ahead to next year, it's really about rail installation. You know, it's a big turning point in the project that we've gone from heavy civil construction to now rail infrastructure construction. So that should be very good news for everyone. The other thing that's not on this page, but kind of which is happening in the background, is the handover of the stage 2 vehicles. So the additional Alstom Citadis vehicles, which are being delivered. So we have 13 that are in rotation right now as part of the fleet. There are another 5 that are close, 4 in final inspection, and a 5th vehicle that's actually doing its burn-in hours. And so we're getting, getting pretty close to having an additional 18, which should more than cover us for the number of vehicles required for the East service. And so no concerns there in terms of timing of those vehicles. You go to the next slide, just talk about the traffic impact. So this is pretty much business as usual. Obviously, that one off-ramp at Pinecrest is there's a lot of attention on that. But the other areas, we're going to just continue to open and close roads and open and close lanes as required to keep the progress going. The same thing on the next slide, a few different areas. The other big change that comes with the project is the realignment of the SGM Parkway. And so now that we have the tunnel built, the parkway is actually going to be moved further away from the river over top of part of the tunnel. So that'll be a big change, and there'll be some big road impacts coming next year for that work. If you go to the next slide, just the schedule. So the schedule is the same. This hasn't changed at all. Still kind of targeting start of November for handover, and we would do trial running, and then we'd make a decision about when to open the system for service. So that's the Confederation Line, east and west extensions. I'll go to the O-Train South. So we'll talk quite a bit about the stations here, and just to tell you about the progress, la construction des 13 stations de la ligne Trillium
Well, the construction of the Trillium Line stations are progressing well. Occupancy permits for the stations are advancing, and we hope to get approval by the end of January next year. We're continuing with getting approvals from the City and Transport Canada. No problems to report to date, but this is something that we're continuing to monitor.
I think this is at one point in one of my updates, I talked about deferring some works, and this Bayview pedestrian bridge was one of the works that we were going to defer. We essentially gave the contractor the opportunity to complete this after the fact. They've actually progressed very well, and so this is unlikely to become deferred works. So the deferred works then becomes much simpler. It becomes landscaping, some extents of the park and ride, but as you'll see, even the park and rides, they've made very good progress on over the last few months. You go to Corso Italia Station is the next one. So you see the left-hand side, reinstated the pathway, far left-hand side, OCH is starting their development. On the right-hand side, you see a bit of a snow-covered pathway. That's just an emergency egress pathway. That's not actually a pathway for regular use. It doesn't lead anywhere except to the street. The station's in very good shape. We're pretty happy with the look and feel. Public art is installed. We're getting ready to go here. Next one, Dow's Lake Station. So again, this one, we had a bit of a delay because of the Hydro Ottawa strike, but I think they're on track to recover that such that it's finished at the same time as the other stations. So very good shape here. And obviously just kind of the other side of the road there, they're continuing to work on the Ottawa Hospital project. And there may be some impacts next year, and just in terms of when they need to start doing work over the guideway. So something to watch and keep an eye on. Carleton Station is on the next slide. So very, good progress here. They're really onto the landscaping at this point. They do need to reinstate the public art that was at that location. So, and then obviously there's the underground walkway that's currently on detour around the landscaping activity. So very good shape onto the kind of the finishing touches. We go to the next one. Just to show you the Rita River Bridge, you see the approach pathways in this photo have been paved. The handrails there's actually some retaining walls there that you can see kind of on either side. The handrails on the retaining walls have been installed just recently, but we're now waiting for the handrails on the bridge itself. And then at that point, once the handrails are in, you wouldn't really need the lighting to open it because it connects to a pathway that's not lit. But theoretically, you could open it once you have the handrails in place. So close, but not quite there yet. You go to the next slide, Mooney's Bay. So Mooney's Bay, again, this is a simpler station, but it's been in very good shape for a while now. So nothing really to report here. Walkley Station a little bit further down. A good shape. The station structure itself is in very good shape. There's been quite a bit of work and to's and fro's a little bit on that pathway. I know that there's been inquiries about that, but that's largely behind us now. Some finishing works here. This one's very close to getting occupancy. And so as we get, one station with occupancy, they'll all kind of tick over and we'll be able to certify the entire system. Greenboro Station next. There hasn't been a ton of work here, but because it's largely been finished for a while now. If you go to South Keys on the next photo, South Keys is again one of the stations that was affected by the Hydro Ottawa strike, but it's now looking good and caught up. There is still quite a bit of landscaping work being done on the side facing the parkway. So more work to be done there. Need to get the fare gates installed, need to get the elevators commissioned at this location. Go to Leitrim Station. So this hasn't changed too much since our last photos. If you go to the next photo, give you a bit of a kind of panned out view of the park and ride. So you see the loop area for the buses is done. What they're doing now is kind of incrementally filling in the sidewalk spaces. And then on the left bottom kind of left, you see this is where the actual parking spots are going to be in the future. And so arriving by the bus, you'll get dropped off. You won't have to go through any gates. You'll go directly into the station. If you arrive by car, you'll kind of go up the middle of the page. You'll have to go through a set of fare gates to get into the station. So very much implementing the fare paid zone concept at this location. They are working every day on this location, and so they're making good progress. If you go to the next one, Bowesville, relatively in the same configuration. You see they're kind of incrementally working through the sidewalk pieces. You go to I don't know if there's a zoomed out version or not at Bowesville, but yeah, there's not. Yeah, so Bowesville, the same condition, working on the park and ride's in decent shape. Just kind of out of the image, there's quite a bit of paving area that's been completed. Then you go to Limebank Station next. You see again the bus loops being finished up. The station's in good shape. The adjacent, a lot of questions about Main Road, and so that does look like it's going to be done well ahead of time. So no concerns there. We don't have an exact date on the timing for the signalization of that intersection, but obviously that would be, so we would likely just bag those signals and not use it until we're ready to open up this area to the public and to traffic. And then the next slide just on Uplands. Again, I think the last few slides showed a fair amount of construction activity, but we're at a pretty good point now where it's just down to the finishing touches with landscaping, both on the foreground of this photo, but also the Ernston, the conference center side of the page. And then the last slide, Airport Station, very good progress there. Nothing to really report. It's been in an advanced state for a number of months now. Just in terms of mobility impacts, so the MUPs, again, the to's and fro's with the closing that were required. On Club, we have been able to give back the lanes. And now that we've done that, we can start to work with our partners in infrastructure services to schedule the repaving of that road, because I know there's been lots of questions about the condition of that road. If you go to the next one, these are those last few intersections down kind of at the southern end. We do need to activate the traffic lights at Bowesville and Earl Armstrong. We do need to activate and then that's probably the more urgent one. The less urgent ones are the signalization to get into the bus loop, and then the signalization to get in for regular car traffic at Main Road. So I don't have a date for you, unfortunately, on the signalization of that street, but the realignment's done. It's just kind of waiting for next steps on signalization. And then if you go to the next slide, just to talk about the project schedule generally. We are getting to a point where it's, getting around the corner on some of the station occupancy, which is kind of a big milestone to be able to get the public into those stations. So that's very good. Over the coming 6 weeks, we hope to get occupancy at a number of locations. The next step is really the train testing. We have been doing a fair amount of train testing in the evening, getting between 5 and 6 hours of trains out on the network running around. The next focus is really to increase the number of trained operators such that we can go, instead of going 5 and 6 hours, we can start going up to 12, all the way up to 18, 20 hours a day of running. And that will allow us to really understand the reliability of the system, reliability of the maintenance practices, reliability of the system generally. So we need to get to that point, and that will start in the new year. We have our first cohort of operators nearly trained, and the second one is starting imminently. There's a total of right now 4 cohorts that are required. So those cohorts 3 and 4 will kind of start in the new year shortly after we get back from the break. So lots of good progress. I don't, not able to kind of predict where we're going to end up in terms of the schedule, but we are kind of moving forward on all fronts. So the next slide, just kind of a summary of the risks and activities. This is just kind of the general slide that we've been tracking for several commission or meetings now. The first one, obviously, is still trying to avoid any safety incident during service, still kind of keeping that front of mind because that will blow out the schedule. Station occupancy approvals, we talked about a little bit. Park and Ride has made very good progress over the last few months. The third is the train testing commissioning. They're very close to being finished. We still need to run more hours on it to kind of work out bugs and find issues and surface problems that we can then correct before going to service. But otherwise we're in good shape. And then I would say the only other one I would comment on this list is the rail regulatory approvals, which seem to be in hand. I haven't, no hiccups there, no concerns. Transport Canada has been a good partner on the file, been helping us out and being responsive. And so we think we're very, very close to that. Ultimately, we need that just before we open to the public in the form of a railway operating certificate. So we expect to receive that per the schedule and per our needs. So no issues, no concerns there with Transport Canada. And then again, just a reminder how to stay connected to us. Different ways. Obviously, the new website went up is very interesting. We are trying to post blog updates and provide interesting articles for you to share as needed. And then, so that's the end of the presentation, but we do have a short video just to kind of give you a before and after look at some of the locations. So let Clarks put up the video now.
Okay, merci. I was waiting for Boseville and Limebank Station there. I'm not sure we saw there at the end there, but thank you for that. Merci pour votre présentation. On va passer
Thank you
maintenant.
for the presentation. We'll go to questions now. Councillor Brockington.
For this latest update. It's great to see the progress, all three lines or all three directions. The opening date for the south end line looks like it's changed again. At our last meeting, we were looking at April of 2024, and now on your chart, it looks like it could be June of 2024. Can staff just comment on what we're targeting for the opening date, please?
Chair, thank you for the question. In the last meeting, I said spring, and I had a specific question to guess, I guess April, but we're still in spring.
Okay, I want to wrap my head around the level of accountability that we have with our contractors and whether the opening date is at their discretion or whether we have the ability to say, you know what, we need to set some strict deadlines here. We need to be aiming towards a date, May 1st, or whatever date you want to pick today, and not see that when we come back in the new year, it's now September, or there are other delays for whatever reason, and it's now late 2024. How much influence do we have sitting with our partners to get a date established so we don't keep seeing these dates postponed further and further?
Thank you, Chair. We have weekly meetings, and this is on top of all other meetings that we can have. And since 2 weeks ago, we have started to have Jan Becker with us, is in charge of the TNext project, is sitting with us to make sure that we have the same understanding. So we don't say a date and he will have another date in his head. I can tell you that we're working very, very well collaboratively. However, this is normal to have those kind of issues, and I prefer to have them during this period of time. When time comes to guess for date, for sure, it's always, is everything okay? And Clint Crabtree was here earlier and shared that we had bus drivers ready to go as operators, and we had to bring them back. So we wanted to make sure that we were ready to work with TNext, but however, because of many reasons, we couldn't. So that's why we brought those people back to the bus side. But this is the collaboration we have together. We trust each other, but sometimes that can happen. And I can tell you the focus for TNext and for my group is definitely we want to open this line as soon as possible, but we will do it only when we will make sure that it's safe to do so, and it's safe and reliable as well. This is, I think, the takeover today: safe and reliable.
Excellent, thank you. No disagreement there. I guess what I've said in the past is if we know what tasks remain, and if we know how long each task takes, you can accurately pinpoint when you're going to be done and ready. And so it's I guess frustrating, not just for all of us, but the public who are looking forward to seeing the south end opened. You've mentioned trains are running at night. I see them myself basically every time I'm out. We're running them, as you said, 5 to 6 hours a day. What are we experiencing with our testing? Are there any issues? Anything of concern that you need to raise with us? How is testing going?
So I think testing is going as expected. We know that, for example, there's 4 switch heaters at Limebank that don't have the gas lines connected yet. And so as you would expect, as we hit some winter weather, we started to see some switch issues. But as more and more of those switch heaters come online and are finished, we'll be in a better spot there. When in mid-November, we did do a first test with 9 trains in service, and that surfaced some software challenges that needed to be adjusted. And we expect that the more we run, the more we will surface small issues, and ideally they just kind of get resolved quickly, and none of them are kind of showstoppers, but we have been seeing some things. The more we do testing, the more we surface some issues. Both on the infrastructure side as well as on the vehicle side. On the vehicle side, some of it's like just shakedown issues, the door, we've had the trains for 2 years. We haven't been using the doors a lot. So now kind of putting them into service, saying, okay, now when you're running the trains, we want you to open and close the doors at every stop, just as a means to really say, okay, we need to exercise this as much as possible. So we're absolutely seeing issues and we're correcting them. Nothing so far we've seen that said, oh, this is a problem, we need to pause. That's going to take us 3 months to resolve. To date, it's all been small stuff that can get resolved quickly.
That's great to hear. Thank you. You mentioned the Walkley MUP that connects Walkley with the RioCan property on the east. Is the LRT team's responsibilities with the MUP now complete before they take over? I met with RioCan this week. We were talking about their work on the MUP, but is the MUP that the LRT team is supposed to build landscape, is that done?
Nearly, Mr. Chair, the landscape is not complete. You
Okay.
see some of the spots have the first layer of topsoil, but none of the bushes or the shrubs or that type of thing have been put in place yet.
Okay, fair enough. Chair, I'll just add, and again, it's quite a ways away and we know that timelines change, but I was just noting that the West End opening date is tentatively scheduled for late 2026. The good thing about that date is that's also the tentative timelines of opening the new Atasoke Library, which the West End of the LRT will serve as well. And if both timelines stick to our current schedule, it would be a fantastic quarter for this city to see our new library with Archives Canada and the LRT open. So I just wanted to raise that today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kavanagh.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mike, for a presentation as always. First of all, I just want to let you know that I want to say thank you to the staff of the Stage 2 who are always helpful. As you know, the west side, Bay Ward is heavily impacted by the construction with detours, etc. And the Stage 2 team have been incredibly helpful working through all the issues that happen almost daily. So I just want to say thanks for that. In terms of pathways, and this is across the whole system, can we be sure of winter maintenance? It strikes me that if we don't have all year round access to the stations, really good access, we may have wasted our time building a system if we don't have it so that it's as easy to get to as possible. So I just want to know, it may not be you directly who's working on it, but is that being looked at thoroughly?
Mr. Chair, there is a working group that's looking at all the new pathways and all the new connections to the stations. Obviously, there's kind of a interplay between Public Works, Transit, NCC. So there's a lot of owners as well. And so there's even a split between Transit, what Transit Service is doing with our staff versus what RTG will do with their staff. And so there is a working group looking at mapping out all the connections and all the accountabilities, responsibilities. I know that that goes so far, and at some point there will need to be a discussion if there's kind of further links or longer distance links that need to be maintained. But certainly with anything within the catchment, we're trying to make sure it's done properly.
That would be great. How can we be updated on that? Because that is crucial to communicate to the community how things are moving along. I get it. It's really complicated. We're very unique in terms of the NCC and then other departments being involved and the fact that, the Stage 2 is being built by a third party and working it all together. So how can we get updates?
Mr. Chair, I can do a check-in with that working group and assess how far they are along in terms of assigning the accountabilities and then report back on where they are, as well as the status of which pathways are kind of fully known and accounted for and which ones are maybe like still nobody's taken ownership or responsibility for them.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. One of the questions I get all the time, and you'll know this one, the pedestrian bridge at Queensview. It's just there and it's just delighting people. It's connectivity. And due to the fact that the station's not going to open till the the end of 2026, is it possible that people can use it before then?
Mr. Chair, that station is connected to, or sorry, the pedestrian bridge is connected to the station, has a series of elevators, is probably at least a year and a half away from being finished to the point where it could be usable. And then at that point, we would need to reassess from an occupancy perspective, from an ownership, from a maintenance perspective, who would be taking that over. Currently, Rideau Transit Group has responsibility for the maintenance of that facility, but they would not be taking that on until the system goes live. And so that would be something that once the station is further advanced, we could assess to see if there's an opportunity for an early opening of that structure.
I really appreciate, thank you. Is it possible to have a public presentation, particularly for the West End, but for the overall system? I know that there's a real appetite just because, I mean, they don't get these presentations that we do. We share the slides, et cetera, but give them a chance to ask questions, perhaps in the spring.
Mr. Chair, yes.
Okay, that'd be great. Well, thank you as always.
Thank you, Councillor Liebert.
Thanks, Chair. We haven't seen the Alstom report, and I'm contemplating kind of the legal steps that councillors could use to challenge the refusal by RTG to provide that to us. But we do know enough about it to know that there are some mitigations for stage one that have been suggested that I'm wondering if they are being thought of for stage two. So the ones I'm particularly interested in are the guardrail extensions, as well as the retaining walls for ballast. Is stage two designed in such a way to ensure that those would be built to the satisfaction of what Alstom is looking for in stage one? And I hope the question's reasonably clear. I'm sorry if I.
So I guess that you asked a very precise point about one thing, about the extending the restraining rail through the curves and beyond the curves to ensure that there's stability in the actual stresses of the rail. So there's really one critical location on the Confed line, which is at Blair, and we have made that change.
Okay.
There are other secondary changes like putting top of rail lubricators. Currently, we've provisioned for a series of gauge face lubricators, but those can be swapped out with top of rail lubricators fairly simply. It's just a swap of technology. So,
and I'm sorry, how have they currently been configured?
So currently, we're just in the phase of building the infrastructure. So ensuring there's conduits, ensuring there's power, and ensuring there's communications to the location where the unit would be installed. Okay. And so I suspect that the gauge face lubricators are on order. But
and I'm sorry, I just missed that word again. The gauge
face lubricators. So you can you can put top of rail lubrication, or you can put lubrication on the face of the rail.
Okay.
Right now we've planned for face of the rail, but you could swap that out with a unit that is top of the rail, which would align with what they're doing on stage one.
Okay. Thank
so
you.
Richard and I are in very close contact on any technical changes that arise to make sure that we've accounted for those and are including those in our work.
And then the other one, I think stage two, or at least in the West End, is physically more constrained by retaining walls along more of its route. But the retention of ballast between retaining walls is something that I think Alstom has recommended be done near some of those Herdman and Tremblay area. Have any changes been implemented for stage two such that there are more retaining walls to ensure ballast is being better retained than it is in stage one?
Mr. Chair, I'll have to take that specific question away. I don't know the answer to that offhand, but I would just say that just to give you some comfort, we have engaged RTG and RTM Alstom through a contract to provide, they provided oversight and input into the project specifications. They have boots on the ground now providing oversight of what we're building. So they've reviewed the designs. They have people on the field reviewing what we're building. that's part of the process to ensure that when we're ready to hand it over to them, they've been involved the entire way along and they can readily accept the infrastructure. But the specific point about the ballast at certain constrained locations, I'll check into that.
Yeah, we don't have an idea yet as to whether or not RTG is accepting the Alstom recommendation. We have not seen the Alstom recommendation in any depth with respect to retaining the ballast in order to prevent the track from moving. So I am curious to know whether that is something that'll be implemented in stage 2 without necessarily having seen RTG's response to that Alstom recommendation. That's it. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lowe.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, Councillor Leeper asked the first part of my question. And I want to continue on that by asking, are we using ballast in the cut and cover tunnel? Actually, I would say everything west of Kitchissippi is cut and cover until Lincoln Fields, right? More or less. Are we using ballast in that section, or are we kind of getting tracks in the concrete there?
Mr. Chair, that's a long answer, but leaving Tunney's, you start with the plinth track, and then you go one half of the track is plinth, one half is ballast, and then when you get to the tunnel, it's all plinth all the way through essentially to Lincoln Fields, and then you're switching back to ballast, then you're switching back to plinth, then you're switching back to ballast.
Okay, thank you, because I'm picturing the track, and I think there are only thankfully much fewer sharp curves in the western, actually in all the extensions. So that's kind of what I'm picturing. I think the sharpest one's kind of where curves to go down at Lincoln Fields, but it's fine, whatever. I can find that out myself. Because this was brought up at this could definitely be an email, but because this was brought up publicly by the president of 279, with a possible with the handover date that's sort of up in the air with stage 2, like is that when it comes to the way that operators are booked and operator work is set up there. Like when I remember when we were leading up to stage 1 LRT, we booked 2 sets of work, right? We booked a set of work if the transit was still open and a set if line 1 were to open. Is that something that you have considered, or is there a reason why like you're pushing those operators into the spare board instead?
Chair, it's not an easy answer because we want to have our people on time, and we know that we're supposed to launch the service this year. Unfortunately, the service is delayed. So when we ask a bus driver to book and maybe will leave the job, that brings a lot of issues on the service. And we talked a lot about the reliability of the service. This is something when an operator book for a job and is not available for the job, that brings a complexity. So we are trying to deal with that. However, I have weekly meetings with the union, and we work very well together to try to mitigate. So sometimes I have to decide, should I deliver the service or work on the morale? And sometimes it's hard. I'm trying to have the ball. It's not normally possible, unfortunately. Maybe Troy is supposed to rajouter des choses, but it's not an easy one.
Yes, one of the issues that the unions raised with regards to morale is the fact that in order to sustain service and deal with some of the challenges we're dealing with on the bus side, we knew that there was going to be delays. We didn't need all those operators in training, so we brought them back to bus. In an ideal world, the training would have continued, and then we would have been launching the train. So that did create some challenges and some frustration for some of those individual members. And we tried to work with those, unique circumstances that people had with regards to plans they may have had in terms of, vacations or daycare arrangements, those types of things. So, that's been one of the main issues that we've heard recently is that change in which we brought them into training and said, you know what, it's too early, put you back to bus. That was a source of some frustration for some people, but it was the right thing to do the service for our customers as well as for other bus operators who are perceiving that frustration, of cancellations. Moving forward, when we get into, getting closer to launch, we are looking at all those options with regards to, the bookings and how we coordinate that. There's requirements, that the constructors have to give us, notification 6 months in advance so that we can do that planning, scheduling cycle, but recognizing still within that 6 months, there could be some shifts. So I think we've got that covered. We're looking at those options. It's not ideal to have 2 bookings and have, operators sort of guessing where they're going to be, but it's the right thing to do in certain circumstances. But as I said, the big frustration that we heard from our staff was that shift that we made from rail to bus, or back from rail to bus. And it was the right thing to do for the service.
No, I understand it is a dynamic situation, and I mean, ultimately, it really is pretty short term, right? In the grand scheme of things, it is short term. So hopefully shorter than like way past spring 2024. But I'll keep my fingers crossed for that. Thank you very much for this update. It's very heartening to see all this good progress on the three extensions. Obviously, I care most about South and West. But I think Tim has a question about the diesel tug. Thank you.
Maybe Councillor Tierney. Can't hear you, Councillor Tierney. Start over.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor Lowe. Don't worry, I'm not going to talk about the tug today. It's here. I'm happy. Love it. I do share a lot of the similar concerns as Councillor Leeper about the Alstom report, but I'll save that for a rainy day. What I was looking in the East End, can you confirm, Michael, again, what the timelines are? Because there seems to be a lot more slippage than I thought on the timeline. We want a safe, secure system, so don't get me wrong. And the East End's progressing very well. When would the testing, when are we going to see them running up and down the tracks? Because I know they got the catenary systems in, they're firing everything up, looking good. When are we going to see the testing of the trains? And when will paid service be in place?
Mr. Chair, the testing currently is planned for the end of January, February. That's a little bit dependent on the weather and things coming together, but that's the current plan to see first thing next year at around that timeline. And then by the end of the year across the entire line, there has been some slippage. The current estimate for completion is March 21, 2025.
Oh, that's a lot more slippage. Is it not? Like, I'm just trying. I thought it was going to be fair service in 2024. Was it not originally?
Mr. Chair, I think the plan was always to have the system finished in 2024 with handover in kind of early 2025. We have lost 60 days in the latest schedule update, so handover is being pushed to March 21.
Okay, fair enough. And the other thing, I just discovered, we've had a lot of lane closures and things happening in the East End, which has been a bit of a challenge. We've all toughed through it, our 4 East End councillors working together. We realize it. But last night I noticed the 174 went down to 1 lane last night on each side after 10:30. I think we really have to make sure we have the messaging out there because I got quite a few complaints about that. But that's something I can take offline with you later on, and we can discuss as collectively as a group in the East End. But I want to thank you for the presentation. I think it's good. We're keeping people up to date, and that's what they really want to know. So that's all I have today, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tierney. Any other?